Hello, everybody. I'm Rick DiClemente, and you are with Astrology Unplugged. And it's nice to have you with us tonight. Even if you're coming across from YouTube, we like to welcome our YouTubers. Tonight's going to be about astrology. I wanted to mention next week. Next week will be our fourth time with Stephen Poplin. Stephen's been with us. He's an astrologer. He is a hypnotist. He's a regressive hypnotist, and we are charging ourselves with the task of looking at the planets between October 15th and January 21st. Aha! And boy, you ought to see what they're doing. Now, we can't concretely predict what will happen, such as the winter of election, but let me tell you what, the planets are really stirred up during this time. And Stephen's very good, and we're going to do our best to translate it for you. I would not put him on unless he were really good, and he is very good. So please join us then. That's next week, October 15th. Tonight, we're going to talk about Jupiter, Neptune. I'm going to tell you why. I got a video, and I'm going to put the URL up on just a second. I got a video I made in 2015. I went down by the river in Need. I went by the Youghiogheny River, which is right by my house. And I made a video on the Jupiter opposition to Neptune, which was in September of 2015. And I saw what was coming. Tonight is going to be about that. It's also going to go back in time when that Jupiter and Neptune came from a conjunction in 2009. I'm going to show you how the conjunction in 2009 eventually became the opposition, just like a full moon, in 2015, and how it's led us to where we are now. And I gave you the choice back in 5 years ago: inspiration or cult, inspiration or delusion. I'm going to explain how that happened, how it is happening. So let me go right into, let me try to get this right here. Whiteboard. Okay, I'm going to do text. Okay, let's try to get this text on here and put that. Okay, there is the URL. If you would like to watch the video I made, that's all one string. If you would like to watch it, just type that in to your URL, and that will take you to that particular one. If not, you can just go into YouTube, search Rick DiClemente, Jupiter and Neptune. I will put this on again later. There we go. All right. Now, in order to understand, Waldo's on his way in, and everybody get your towels out, because Mr. Waldo sent me pictures from the Yucatan, and the water was up to his waist in his house. So they got hit really hard, and thankfully he's doing okay. So we're glad to hear that, even though, I don't know, he must be drowning in the waiting room somewhere. Okay, now, remember, so many astrologers don't do this, and I don't know why, but, I learned what I learned. When you have two planets opposite, at some point they were conjunct. And when they're opposite, you have to do the study of cycles themselves. Like during the month, the new moon is a conjunction. The full moon is 2 weeks later, then the new moon again. The quarter moon, half moon, quarter moon, all the way back. In the case of Eris, every 250 years it gets opposite itself. Okay, so all cycles follow the same mathematics. The overused word of today is they follow the same calculus. That's the new word you're hearing everywhere. Right, Linda? And then the other overused word is, it's in his DNA. How in the hell do they know what's in the DNA? Okay. Now, The reason it's important now is because we're really starting to see the output of the delusion and the cult part that I told you about in 2015. Now I'm going to stop right here and do my little soapbox thing for a minute, just so you know where I'm coming from. It is my belief that the number one problem in the world is we have translated religion into how you're supposed to behave. And because of that, it's led to a lot of guilt, a lot of sin, a lot of I do it right and your team does it wrong. I don't have to go any further than that. But where I'm heading with my stuff and in my chart and what my purpose is to teach people, hopefully I'm right, that there aren't any rules. Nowhere, anywhere. And this is all everything's somebody's opinion. Everything is someone else's opinion. And you take it seriously, you take it lightly. And because of that, we really mess ourselves up bad. Anyhow, that's where this is based. So the Jupiter-Neptune became opposite in 2015. And I just gave you the link to a 7-minute video I made down by the river about Jupiter-Neptune. And it goes back because it's the son of. It was born during the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. You just go into the chart and you ask the computer, show me when this Jupiter-Neptune opposition, show me when it was a conjunction. It takes you back exactly. And it's my opinion, I don't know if this is right, but this is how I do it. When you're doing a chart for the whole world, well, what do you use for the birthplace? It's my opinion that you use Greenwich, England. Greenwich is a part of London. It's where that gold plate is that's officially 0 degrees longitude. And I've been using it for years, and of course it works very well. For the United States, of course, I use Washington, D.C. Now, we've got to talk about Jupiter and Neptune, which we've been talking a lot the past couple of months. Jupiter is a planet that wants to expand. It wants to grow. So when the Jupiter Susan asked me if she could go on a road trip, should she go on a road trip and just paint what's out there and forego her fixed house and go on the road trip? It was an easy answer. Yes, go. Yes, that's what Sagittarius do. Now, if you're 85, I might not answer it that way. Okay. So Jupiter wants to expand. And remember, it's the former ruler of Pisces. This is no happenstance. Neptune wasn't discovered till the 1800s, and then they assigned Neptune to Pisces. Jupiter was the former ruler of Pisces, and it's always the ruler of Sagittarius. So when you put Jupiter and Neptune together, Neptune is the planet that I don't care what you say, I just want to go to God. It's that calling you want to go to God. You just want to give up everything about yourself. In a healthy way, just surrender to the God that's out there moving through you. Now, when you put the two together, they're very, very powerful. In almost everybody I've ever seen, when it's conjunct in their chart, in some way, they're going to have a very strong spiritual direction. Whether it's a calling for the priesthood, whether it's a nunnery, whatever it is, whether it's Zen work, there's going to be a calling to grow towards the oneness. Because remember, Jupiter is the ruler of Sag. And what is Sag? Sag is the fireworks. Sag is the fire being expressed, the excitement. Hey, everybody, let's get excited. Hey, let's do it. Put the two together. These are the two signs that don't have any control. Like Saturn and like Taurus, we have control, or like Virgo, they don't have any control. So you got to get help somewhere because they'll just fizzle out in the universe. Now, when you look at the real positive sign, you can see that in many charts, they have a beautiful aspiration towards the calling towards God. You might call it saxophone, you might call it singing, you might call it writing. I don't care what you call it. The muse speaks through you. Now, these are different, and you got to learn this, Susan. These are different than other planets. When you start to look at other planets and their squares and their opposition, they all act a little differently because they all have different natures. When I see people with Jupiter square Neptune or opposite Neptune, the problems go way up. Because most people are not absorbing Neptune in its truest message. Neptune's real close to getting you to drink the bottle, put the needle in the arm. Neptune's real famous. Escapists, adulterers, they're still coming in. Pay year by the door. When they come in from the waiting room, get a quarter, 25 cents from each one of them. Okay. So what I'm saying to you is, when you have a very healthy Jupiter Neptune, it's still hard to manifest because we're brought up in the West. In the West, we're up here, the preacher's up there, he's the one that connects with God, and we're back here watching. That's wrong. It's not how it should be. Collection in the plate, put the money in the plate. But God's up there, we're back here. We're finally learning. So because it's hard to manifest correctly, when it's square, when it's opposite, it really leans towards the negative side, which is delusion, which is put on your Nike tennis shoes and get behind that next comet with Mr. Appleby, Mr. Applegate. This is where the crazies come from. When you got crazies, it's Jupiter, Neptune, Uranus. Okay, especially Neptune, Uranus. Okay, because those energies are just not used right. So you can still have a Jupiter square Neptune and Jupiter opposite Neptune, and you can still have very strong spiritual aspirations, and you can still do very, very good work, but it's almost guaranteed that much of the time you're going to be deluded. Okay? It's just really, really hard to manifest and ride that wild donkey. Because you're riding a donkey, all of a sudden the donkey ain't there. Where'd it go? The Jupiter says, let's ride, and Neptune's all about clouds and illusions, and where did it go? So it's very common with Jupiter, Neptune, anything, that you're going to have trouble with delusions, deluding yourself. Okay, now, I know plenty of people with the square and the opposition that are just wonderful, and they have to hope to have a strong Saturn, something to keep them grounded. So, when we look at the Jupiter-Neptune opposition from 2015, this is what the video is about. Okay. Let me hit the right buttons. Here is the chart. Yeah. Here's a chart for, I got to get all my buttons right here. Okay. Here's the chart for September 17th of 2015. And I did a video about a week before that. And these planets are so strong. Neptune, Jupiter. Neptune, Jupiter. 7:58, 7:58, the exact moment for Greenwich, England. Okay, now, see Mars and Venus are in Leo. What I learned, and it's something I talked with Liza about this week, I never thought of this before. When I go back to the opposition of these two planets, and I see them as a 6 year later answer to the conjunction of Jupiter, Neptune, 2009, the conjunction is always the seed that's born. The opening square is the first test. You find your weak spot. The opposition is another test, but much bigger. And the question becomes, are we going to keep this up? What are we going to do with this? The closing square, much the same. Then the next conjunction, and the next seed is planted. Well, the seed that was born in 2009, let me show you that. I showed you the wrong one. Let's see here. All these buttons, I can make sure I hit the right one. Okay. Okay, here's where it all began. The Jupiter-Neptune conjunction was December 21st, the first day of winter. In 2009, you will notice that Jupiter and Neptune are exactly together. Think. You got to get used to this somewhat. Neptune's 186 years around, 184 years around, something like that. Jupiter's every 12 years. 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. So about every 13, 14 years, Neptune's moved about this much. Maybe Neptune moves through one sign in 14 years, 12 years, and Jupiter goes all the way around. So we're up for another Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in a couple of years. Here you see the conjunction. And what I did is I went to the 25th degree. Anything past 24 is called the 25th degree of Aquarius. Okay, so I went to the book done by Linda. What's her last name? I'll get it. Linda was a visitor on our show, and she did a book, a wonderful book on this.
Hayes?
When what?
Linda Hayes?
No.
Sorry.
Sorry. Each degree of the zodiac has a meaning given to us by a psychic in 1927, and she gave us the answer because she gave us the answer, John. She gave us the answer because she had the answer. You don't ask how these things happen. She just did. Her name was Elsie Wheeler, 1927, a blind psychic. She sat down with Mark Edmund Jones, one of the greatest astrologers in history, in a park in San Francisco, and he gave her 180 5x7 cards, 3x5 cards. They took a break, then they gave her the other 180 cards, and on the back of each was written a degree and a sign of the zodiac. She couldn't see, she's blind, so she took a card and she wrote down, or had him write down, what she sensed that degree meant. And here's where the kicker is. And if you Westerners don't like this, then I'm sorry, you go try to solve it some other way, okay? The degree has a meaning of itself because it has a meaning. She was the channel that interpreted that to us because she was the channel that interpreted us. You can't use reason here. This is all quantum. That collection became known as the Sabian symbols. You can look up any degree, your sun sign, your rising sign. Sometimes the Sabian symbol that you're reading, it seems more appropriate to be the one next door to it. So Linda tells me you either read the degree it tells you or one next to it on the other side. But anyhow, when you read that particular degree in, what did I say, Aquarius? Jupiter, Neptune, 25 Aquarius. When you read the meaning of that degree, what you got to remember in 2009, that was the end of a cycle that had begun 14 years before. And there was a new seed being put into the earth. And that seed, the meaning of that degree, was a butterfly whose one wing is developed more than the other one. And then came along Dane Rudger, one of the greatest astrologers in history, and he gave these meanings, interpretations. And so what we see, together with the meaning of the butterfly wings, is that in 2009, we reached a very new beginning in terms of our Jupiter-Neptune. Our Jupiter-Neptune is our spiritual path. Now, you may not have noticed this because Pluto had just entered Capricorn, 2008, all hell was breaking loose. But there was a subterranean Jupiter-Neptune message going on. Linda Hill. Did you say Hill? Erica, did you say Hill? Okay, it is Hill. Linda Hill, thank you very much.
Peggy said.
Okay, Linda Hill.
I was just agreeing with her.
Okay, Australian. Nice lady, she's been on this show. Okay, the meaning of that degree is the butterfly has balance in one wing and not the other, indicating she's a tremendously intuitive Scorpio woman who's did a phenomenal job of reinterpreting these degrees in her book on the Sabian symbols by Linda Hill. One of our halves of our brain is more developed than the others. I don't have to tell you which one it is. So as of 2009, we received a subterranean message that it's time for us to get balanced in our brain. Now, real sensitive people were busy writing about this. They knew about it, and they started talking about the S word, shift. They started talking about the shift coming in 2012. They were exactly right. So, mankind planted a new seed. The positive meaning of that is getting rebalanced and finding more bliss in our future. The negative side was stay unbalanced and you see what happens to yourself. So, 6 years later, you have let's see if this is right now. 6 years later, Jupiter had become opposite. So Jupiter and Neptune were together in early Aquarius, and Neptune had moved into Pisces. Jupiter had gone all the way around. Now you had the opposition. Okay, and that's what the video is about. Now, one thing I learned that really surprised me this week, it's something that came from my muse, I guess you would say, is that you can't just interpret what Jupiter and Neptune were doing and what degree they were happening at to evaluate the opposition. You have to take the whole chart into effect. Because it looks like in astrology, we're looking at all these pieces. But when you look at your loved one, you don't see other pieces, you see your loved one. You take it all into account. So therefore, you read the whole chart to interpret what the Jupiter-Neptune meant in 2009. And what do you see? Mercury opposite Uranus. This speaks of our tremendous revolution going on with high-tech stuff. High-tech taking over commerciality and the T-squared of Pluto and the arrogance of Venus, Mars, and Leo. So what we saw was it was planted in 2009. By 2015, we're checking in to see how has that butterfly done in terms of getting its wings balanced. And what did we find? Just total neurotic industrialism with everybody on their phones and in video games and all this stuff. And we were finding our answers out in technology instead of where? In Jupiter, Neptune, which is in our hearts. So when I made the video, it became very clear to me. Matter of fact, the video was entitled Inspiration or Delusion. Inspiration or Cult. Hello, 2020. So the reason many of us have gone towards the cult, mainly it's because we see religion as that's for religious people who go to church. They follow the rules. They behave nicely. We have such a misunderstanding because what Trump said in Virginia was exactly right. They're good people on both sides. Of course they are. There are good people everywhere. It's just people get lost. So, would you rather be lost with your limited learning, or would you rather follow a guy who's fiery and seems to know what he's doing? That's how you get a cult. He seems to know what he's doing. And you look through our history, we take to leaders who seem strong because we're cancers, and we want somebody to go beat up the bad guy so the bad guy doesn't get us. That's how we got to this. Instead of yielding to the Jupiter Neptune, because so much of the crowd thinks that yielding and thinks that sacrificing is for wimps. It's not. I was watching on TV there, and then I happened to notice so many men who are so effeminate now. There's so many men who have much more of a feminine side than they used to. And I started to look at it really clearly. And it's just obvious they're just being themselves more. And we're much more of a male-female combination than we think. Back in the John Wayne days, you didn't let that go on. So get together with my buddies and kidnap the damn governor of Michigan. What the hell are they going to do with the governor of Michigan? What are they going to do with her if they kidnapped her? What's it going to do for them? They're going to kill her? They're going to take over the Capitol building? So anyhow, you see that the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction of 09 came to crisis point in 15, which it did. And you see now the outgrowth of it, because underlying all this Jupiter-Neptune combination, you see tremendous growth that's happened. Look at how many people have put out shingles since 09. Go on Facebook, go around. People everywhere are all kinds of different healers. People are going to all different kinds of churches, reading all kinds of different types of books. People are really getting it. Stuff has started in the 60s, started in the 50s with the beatniks. We didn't have it coined very well. We didn't understand it real clearly. But it started thousands of years ago in India and China and the Americas. So, what you saw in 09 was the birth of this movement. 2015, you saw it come to true test. And that's what you're seeing now. You're seeing other people call it fear versus love. Everybody's using different words. Same thing. Fear versus fear, inspiration, love, inspiration, fear versus separation, and cult. Because when you're in a cult, like Ram Dass said, if you're in a cult, you don't care if you're right or wrong, because there's so many of you, you feel okay. So, we see another interesting tidbit that just happened, and I kept telling you for years that this was coming in March of 18, and it did. I told you many years before that the GOP's chart had Neptune right here, and that 164 years later, Neptune was returning in the GOP's chart. I gave you the month and day, and it did. And during a Neptune return, okay, Neptune had its oppositions, had its birth, had its full cycle, and returned. And what happens during a Neptune return? Similar to the US going through its Pluto return right now. What happened during a Neptune return? We were tested by nature as to how Neptunian they were. The GOP was tested. How Neptunian were you? You cannot BS the planets. You can't do it because they're the real part of you or your organization. So what I kept saying was, if they don't change their ways and become more Neptunian, more loving, more including, less smoke and mirrors, less bullshit, less weapons of mass destruction, less lying to the people, blah, 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 then they're going to decay. And that's exactly what happened. That's why there is no Republican Party. They're gone. They all sit in the Senate going like this. Whatever he says, whatever he says, whatever he says, because they died and they withered and faded right along time that the king came to us. The king of illusions came to us. The king of illusions, drinking Lysol. He came to us. So they didn't have much choice. They hooked onto his wagon. Now we're in the midst of fighting this group that you can't reason with. You don't know why they still believe what they believe, but they're just into it and they're into it and that's it and that's the way it goes. And that's how cults are. So you've got this huge Neptune thing going on with the Republican Party, and a huge amount of the country is that fashion. And the way you wake up from a Neptune problem is you become spiritually reborn. I was wrong. Mea culpa, let me learn about loving people. It's not hard to figure out. That's what a Neptune proper return is before you plant a new seed for the next 164 years. In their case, they're so bad off, it's just going to dissolve and stay dissolved. Okay? But what have they chosen to do? They've chosen to put smoke and mirrors on top of old smoke and mirrors. So what do you got? You got a whole country full of people trying to gaslight you every night. You don't see what you see. Nah, you don't see that. Nah. And all this crazy stuff that you're seeing. So you've got the Neptune decay still going on. You've got the cult who looks like they're crazy enough to try to kidnap a governor. You've got a thing called an upcoming election. Oh my God. We're going to talk about this next week, about all the planets between October 15th and January 21st. And it ain't going to be no picnic because we've already done the charts. We don't know how it's going to turn out, but it really looks ugly with all the heavy planets in Capricorn. So that's what's going on. So I'm going to take a pause for 1 second. So today when I was reading about the degree where the Neptune is in the GOP's chart in Jackson, Michigan, which is where their first meeting was, 16 Pisces is where Neptune was when they started 164 years ago. The warning about that degree in that same book is that they're not talking about what needs to be said, and the warning is that the ideas that they have do not translate into reality, and they are shut off from others, and there's a strong tendency towards schizophrenia. So when you run into Mr. McConnell and you try to talk to him about all the people suffering in this country, that's why you got this schism. Where it's so obvious. A lady died a couple days ago, 26, 28-year-old doctor. She'd been using the same mask in the hospital for months. She died of COVID. You got double speak going on. So anyhow, what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to address any questions about that Neptune. If we run out of time with that subject, I'm going to just turn it over to reading charts for people because that's what I do. And that's what we need to do. So you have any questions, let me have it by unmuting and asking. By the way, you YouTubers, if you ever want to join us on Thursday nights, you're welcome. Free reign astrology, fireside chat without the fire. Just go to Google and type in Astrology Unplugged. That will take you to my website, starself.com, and it'll take you to the link, which puts you in here for free on Thursday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern. Any questions? Yes. Go ahead. Go ahead,
I just,
Erica.
I just noticed that Neptune is at 18 degrees Pisces, so it was at 16 degrees not that long ago.
That's
And I
when
wonder how that affected the Republican Party at that
that's
time.
when you saw it decay. That's when you saw it in 2018. There was nothing left. No more guardrails. Nowhere to hold on to. Couldn't convince anybody anymore. All you had to do was smoke and mirrors. All they had left was smoke and mirrors. They kept looking at each other. Didn't know what to do. There was nowhere to go. There was no leader. And up popped the king. Because we don't have a president now. We got a king. This one guy's making all these decisions for 350 million people. This one guy keeps making these decisions. That's why we need a Pluto return, because we got it wrong in this country. This is not how it was intended. I mean, the president should make a lot of decisions, but not all these decisions that affecting everybody. No, there won't be stimulus money for $1,200 a piece because I'm not in the mood. But
Can I
yeah,
say
you're
something
seeing the Neptune return. You're seeing Neptune going back and forth over that point. Yes.
So was it Neptune that allowed sort of the fog for Trump to come in and get away with something that nobody else would have ever been able to do because he was in this fog somehow and he
Well, you had a very
put that
good,
on people?
very good point, but a very difficult thing to say properly. Yes, Neptune didn't do anything. Our misuse of Neptune is what allowed it. Now, you may not read this in the books, but this is definitely true. The reason people have failures during Neptune times is because of one word, and the word is neglect. You just neglect things. Oh, if my wife were better at the house, if you're better in the kitchen, I wouldn't have to have this affair. Affairs are really common with Neptune. So he starts neglecting her. And then the kids are kind of a pain in the butt. I'm going to go to the golf course. He starts neglecting this family. Then all of a sudden one day, I wanted to talk about this today. When Neptune's gone, what happens? And this is going to happen to the Republican Party over the next few years. After the Neptune damage is done, you look around, everything's gone. Where'd it go? It didn't magically disappear. You just ignored it. That's how Neptune works. So, the problem, Erica, very good question, is when Neptune's around, it's real easy to BS yourself. He's going to bring back coal in West Virginia. Woo, I'm voting for him. You hear what you want to hear. That's Neptune, hearing what you want to hear. When people call me, I get calls all the time. Should I start this business? Should I put out my website? Should I do this? Should I do that? I don't like those kind of questions because I like to leave it to the Holy Spirit, but I like to try to help them. And what I do is I really do one thing. When I'm with a client that's asking for electional astrology, I look to see if they're under a Neptune haze. If they're under a Neptune haze, I say, well, it's too real to be good. It probably is. If Neptune is not there and they're considering some major move, usually go for it, you'll be fine. But see, Neptune is really trying to show you that none of this is real. That's what Neptune at its very best and highest is trying to show you. None of this is real because we're all just one with the Lord or with God or with that, whatever you want to call it. And it's a real fine line between that and seeing what you want to see. That's the problem with Neptune. That's why when people come with questions, if they're under a Neptune time, is a real strong chance they're being deluded, or which always comes from deluding yourself. Or Neptune's not there, they're probably making a pretty good choice. So what happened? What happened was perfect because the zodiac is so exquisitely perfect. What happened was the imperfect storm. The ugly American was brought front and center. All these years of The Apprentice, the ugly American was there. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. As we approached our Pluto return, what do you think the Pluto return is about in our country? You're going to go face to face with the ugly American, because that's what Pluto does. The Pluto return. You're going to see what the ugly American is. You're going to see us from other people's perspective. You don't like it or not, and cancer countries don't like it. And that's why he's gotten through all this stuff untouched. Unbelievable. But it's ending. It's all ending. And when it ends, it'll crash, boom, bang. And I'll remind you of something. When it ends, you got to let happen. You got to not let what happened like with Vietnam. Because if you remember, if you're old enough like me, during the Vietnam era, there were a lot of people that were for that war. Fight them out, beat them up, fight them out, kill these people. We don't want commies. We don't want commies. And it wasn't that long after that Vietnam War ended that everybody started talking about, oh, we made a big mistake, and they kind of shoved it off on other people. Or these other people believed that the Vietnam War was good, but it was them. So what's happening with Trump and what's happening with the Neptune return is Neptune is all about looking in the mirror at what you are. If God came down here and took your clothes off, what do you think you look like spiritually? That's exactly what Neptune is. Strip you down to your skivvies. They shunned us poor soldiers and said, you're exactly right. Of course they did. They're projecting. But the good thing about the Neptune return and about the Pluto return is we should be internalizing, looking at ourselves, admitting what we've done, renewing our relationship with other countries, because they're all very patient, very loving, and they're very tolerant of us. Other countries know we're going through madness here. They want us to get it together again. They even want us to go back to a leadership position, which is a bad mistake, I think. Look what we've done with the first time. So, very good question. But the planets don't cause it. The planet indicates the type of challenge you were going through. And during the Neptune time, maybe you don't know this, I don't know where it is either, but I'll guarantee you that the 10 years before 2018, 2018 was the Neptune return in the GOP's chart. I will guarantee you from 2008 till 2018, the GOP had an opportunity to go through a spiritual change, just like is happening in the chart of the NRA. The NRA is blowing it too. I don't know how it happened, but we got our social genius here, Linda, raising a finger. Maybe she knows. On the mute.
I should know this. I was in study hall today, muting and unmuting people all day, so I should know about doing that.
So
I mean, 2008, Obama's elected. They had a chance to turn away from racism, and maybe, it's one thing, the voter suppression and all that stuff and the dog whistling, but they just went into hyperdrive. I mean,
and the day after, they gave Obama one day. I watched it. Fox Network did not get on his back after one day, and the rest of the 4 years, they were on his back making up all this stuff about him.
Well, I mean, so if it's a 10-year period, then it's absolutely clear that.
Oh, I just made that number up 10, because it's like 10, 15 years before something happens. The planet's already.
They certainly had an opportunity there.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did.
There was to negotiate on health care, which it was to, pay no attention to the race of the president and just treat him like a president.
Yeah, but Linda, what do you think the Republican supporters and the financiers would have said to them if they would have turned towards a pro-people type of attitude? What do you think they would have said?
Well, I mean, I just think that they were all on the wrong road. I mean,
of course they were. Of
the
course, they were
supporters and the
driving toward.
base and the
They
whole
were
bunch.
driving towards the cliff.
Yeah. And I don't, you know, I don't, I mean, the thing is that there's an opportunity to change.
Yep. And the reason that most people don't cash in on the opportunity to change is they do not believe that there's some force behind them working for their own good. They don't believe it.
Well, one of
They
the,
don't. They think that's what religious people do that stuff.
one
We
of the
want the
things
cash. We want the cash.
when we talk about the opportunity to change, that's a phrase that when you learn fiction writing, one of the things about short stories, one of the powerful formulas for short stories is loss of the last opportunity to change. And you see, you know, many great short stories are about someone who had an opportunity to change
Right.
and just couldn't, you know.
And
It's not
most stories are all about redemption, right?
right.
They really are about redemption. Almost everything you watch. Yeah, you're exactly right, Erica. Erica texted me that it's all about keep the economy growing. So we didn't learn. We kept going back to this whole thing. If the money's okay, we're going to be okay. And the planets kept telling us that no, we need a team of really good astrologers in the White House. Oh, by the
It
Well,
way,
is,
I wanted. By the way, I wanted.
Obama was going to stop that.
What?
Obama was going to put an end to that
Well, Obama
because of
couldn't get anything done because they just badmouthed it.
environmentalism, and they were worried that that was going to stop the economy because all of a sudden, no more big healthcare companies making money, no more drilling. Where's the, you know, we're not going to be able to exploit anything, and so they needed.
It was all smoke and mirrors. It was all lies. And that's what Neptune is about. By the way, before I forget, I don't know the date yet, but I've been invited to go on Australian television. I'll be on Australian, I think it's more like a show like this one with this wonderful woman. I'll be giving you more details about her. She wants me to talk to her about our election candidates and Trump. Imagine me on their show talking about Trump and the two election candidates. I said, I don't need to prepare. I've got that stuff already. So I'll
Who's
let
the
you know about
woman,
that.
Rick?
Huh?
Who's the woman? What show is it?
I can't. Kiana, I can't remember her name. I just got the email.
Okay.
I'll be informing you. She's wonderful. She's got a very nice website. She's got a nice show on YouTube, etc. I'll be telling you about it. But anyhow, you're exactly right. Thank you, Linda. That's really good that you pointed that out, because I don't want to be a preacher here. When you don't have a spiritual basis, what do you have? Money. I got my, you don't have yours. What is that I saw in the news about 10 years ago? I told Liza this. They were interviewing somebody. He said, well, the problem is because you have the haves and the have-nots. And they said, well, what do you think was the solution to this? This is a Republican. What could be the solution to this? Well, tell the have-nots to become haves. So anyhow, it just shows you, see, what we're doing this year is really unusual in astrology. We are in a collective year. Most years I could do this show for 40 years and talk about Jupiter and Saturn and Mars and all this stuff and full moons, but we're in just such a collective pressure, mainly because of the introduction of Eris and the fact that she's squaring Pluto. We're into so much pressure collectively that we're not used to. We don't even know where to go, what to do. Do you see what I mean? You can feel it around you. It's collective pressure. And I've noticed some people get more collective pressure than others do. I don't know why. Thoughts, questions? Okay. Well, I just had a little birdie crawl up in my ear, and I will take a moment and we will take a look at Linda's chart, because I've not looked at her chart for a long time. But I think you all got the point about the Jupiter Neptune It conjuncted in '09. That was a new promise. It got to its first big trial, 2015. Then he came out of the eggshell, Humpty Dumpty, 2016. And we're about 2 years, let's say Jupiter's now in Pisces and Neptune's in Pisces, Jupiter's in Capricorn. So Jupiter only has to go 2 more years. It'll conjunct again in Neptune, with Neptune in the sign of Pisces. We'll have a new beginning. And we'll have a conclusion to what happened with those 2 wings that were planted in '09. That's how this works. So let's take a look at Linda's chart. I will put this on pause for a moment. Okay, we're ready for Linda's chart. Let's share the screen. Linda is an English professor. She is a Libra. We talked about her chart a little bit last week with the Scorpio rising. We see a very vivid T-square to Uranus, 7-8 degrees Jupiter Eris. Saturn is really the center of this. Saturn's sun is really the center of the opposition to Jupiter Eris in the T-square to Uranus. So the Uranus is really, really powerful. This is one reason that I was watching last week's video, and I kept feeling something wrong about Linda kept saying that in the old days, she really was very relationship oriented. Well, I understood that and I saw that, but I also saw this. She's got a real strong independent streak. Now, if it weren't for this, then all of the Libra, Scorpio in her, she would be really crazy into relationships. Okay, we see a very intriguing chart led by, and very much in my chart, and my friends my age, the Jupiter conjunction of Eris in 51, 52, 53. So you're very Jovian. You got a bucket pattern to Jupiter. Very strong Jupiter in Aries, and it's in the 5th house of creativity. The difficulty with it is it's right opposite Saturn. Express yourself, be a wild woman. No, don't do that. Now, don't do that. And we're talking about people thinking that Eris is the new ruler of Libra. I'm still got my jury out on that one. We got a moon in Scorpio. We got Scorpio rising. We got Pluto on Mars. We got Pluto exactly square the ascendant. Exactly. So we got Scorpio, 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 Scorpio. Aquarius, Sagittarius. Sag is the teacher in her. It's the English teacher. Straddling the midheaven, we have Venus and Mars. Look closely. Don't get fooled by this. Zoom in. 29, 2 degrees, 3 degrees. So that midheaven is really pretty darn close to splitting that midpoint. In notation, you would write that MC equals Venus/Mars. MC, midheaven, equals the midpoint, Venus/Mars. So you got a Mars in very strong Leo and a Venus in somewhat critical Virgo. What this does is this gives her a lot of charisma. Just charisma. People are going to listen to her. Venus-Mars is charisma. If you don't watch it, Venus-Mars becomes, what?
Wasn't narcissism.
Yeah, narcissism, like our president.
You have to be.
Yeah, but that doesn't work for you. Okay, so the Venus-Mars is very charming. Why? Don't take it for granted. Venus, Mars are really, really strong planets. They're the kings of personal planets. They're the king and queen of personal planets. Go get, take in. Go get, take in. Right in the middle of that, what, you got a Scorpio midheaven? No. What's your midheaven?
It's right on that line between Virgo and Leo.
Virgo midheaven. Okay. So with the Virgo midheaven, the Mars is very happy being in Leo. And thank God you don't use it like the president with his Mars in Leo. That's what you saw at the debate. Plus, I think at that debate, you saw some stuff up his nose too. Something. I think something happened.
I'm going to say, I think that I've always known the tendency in me that I could be like that. I mean, I wouldn't.
It's very strong, yeah.
I wouldn't be like Trump, but that urge to just slap down people and
Pluto and Mars of yours.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what that means. You got to watch it. Thank God it's spread apart. That's a temptation to be heavy-handed, dominate. Yes, right. But Venus Mars is very charming because the one goes out, the one comes in. Venus Mars is very important to analyze in a chart. If a person has Venus Mars square or Venus Mars opposite, they don't know when to call or when to receive. Should I call that woman? No. Should I wait for I get a call? I don't know. But whatever they do, they feel wrong. When your Venus and Mars are messed up, you call and you wish you hadn't, or you wait and you wish you hadn't. When people have the Venus Mars, they just call at the right time. Or most beautiful, Venus trine Mars. Then they just do everything at the right time and they really make you sick. They just do everything at the right time. Okay, so we know it's very charming, and it's at the midheaven, so we know that and plus she's a Libra, okay? They always land on their feet. She's got two strikes in her favor, if I could say it that way, that are always out front of her. They're kind of like good luck planets, and they're not really good luck. They just mean that she does things in a harmonious way, because she chooses to do it. And the world treats her harmoniously because of it. That's what that means. Let's go back to the rest of the chart. Now, I have not talked to you in a long time. I know you've been a student of mine, but I really can't remember what our issues were because I've studied a lot of people in the 50s that were born with this Saturn-Neptune conjunction. Now, luckily, you weren't during the conjunction because it's 12 degrees apart. Jupiter and Saturn. I'm sorry, Neptune and Saturn. One's real, one's not. One's real, one's not. A lot of people that have that Saturn-Neptune closer, they have a lot of trouble with it throughout their whole life. But your sun is in the middle. Let's take a look at your sun. Your sun is 4 degrees from Saturn. It's 8 degrees from Neptune. So it's not near the midpoint. It's not near the midpoint. Now, what's interesting to me is I would say to myself, well, how does it operate? Well, I would think that sometimes she comes out real Piscean. Sometimes she comes out real Capricorn. Then she's Pisces, then she's Capricorn. Then she's Pisces, then she's Capricorn. Then she's lunar, she's Cancerian, then she's Scorpio, then she's Leonine, then she's Aquarian, then she's Sagittarian. So I've told you all for a long time that we all have 5 or 6 signs real strong. Yours are real strong. Now, what do you have to say about all that?
Sometimes when I'm teaching, I almost can see myself shift gears. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of, teaching is always a performance, and
Sure.
when you're doing that, there are times when when the Saturn side comes out, it's like, you're not supposed to be on Zoom today.
Wait a minute. My cat's ever eaten something. Hold on.
Yeah.
Stuart. Her brand new computer.
Oh, no. Okay.
Stuart. That's okay. He mostly gums. No, he's gumming your computer. I thought you might want to know. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Linda. We have a little bit of amusement here on the show. He's He just likes to gum everything. He's not even old. Go ahead, Linda.
I was just going to say, I think that there are times when I go back and forth between
Sure.
those things, and I sometimes wonder what the students make of it, because one minute I'm like wagging a Capricornian finger in their face and saying, "Now,
Well, I've watched you, and I don't see it that way. I see it as I see you as having a really big library, and you're just possible you're going to talk about this part of the library. You might also talk about that part. I don't see it as problematic at all, but you're really lucky that the Saturn and Neptune are not closer.
Yeah,
And I've seen
we talked about that a lot, because
I've seen some Libra people that they just don't know what's up, and Libra needs help to begin with its identity, because that's why it looks at a partner so much. But let's get into why are we having this reading? Why did this happen? Let's go back and take a look. Sorry, Stuart, I got to get you something to work your gums on. That's funny. Okay. Everything you look at in today's chart, you start by going to 24 cardinal. Everything's happening at 24, 23 cardinal. Right here is where Pluto and Saturn are. Where's Eris? 24 here. That's the story in everybody's chart. 24, 23. The president's getting bombarded. Oh, is he getting bombarded? Boy, he's really lucky he didn't die. His planets are getting smashed.
He may yet.
Huh?
He may yet.
You can't predict this guy. He's unpredictable. But anyhow, the stress is right here, and it's right here. Notice you don't have any planets here. Nothing at 24 here. So you're not really getting hit by the planets heavily, but you are getting a very powerful trine to that moon. Okay? Is that right? In conjunction and a sextile. In other words, your moon's being hit hard just because it's at the 25th degree. So lunar issues are becoming very important to you. Moon issues, especially rising in the first house, moon issues is I got to really get off the books and stop thinking, and I got to really get down to my emotions. Are my emotions serving me? This is a big, big question when your moon's getting bombarded by a quincunx and by a sextile. Does it make any sense to you?
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah. There's just, like there's something going on at work. I mean, we have, right now everything's bad. It's hard, it's difficult, it's worse, it's lonely. There's just, it's very hard to teach when half your class is here and half your class is on Zoom. And because I have people in the room, I have people on Zoom at the same time, and it's exhausting. And then, the top boss is messing with my money a little bit, and I can't seem to get it resolved. And, 10 years ago, that would have like made me crazy. You know what I mean? Mars and Leo would have been losing my mind there, but what, I'm just aware of that it's making me detach, and it's like I'm moving the object of my affection from one thing to another. That's what it feels like. It's not that I don't like
another thing is you are a very social animal. You're a very social animal, and the society has never been through so much disruption, probably since World War II. I mean, we're just going through crazy stuff. So really, your chart's not going through an awful lot right now. Because of that, I'm not going to even bother with harmonics at the moment. You got an awful lot going on. It is October with a birthday coming, so we need to look at your return chart. Maybe that's where all the goodies are hiding. Okay.
There's something.
Did you look at your return chart?
No, I can't get one. I have a Macintosh, so an Apple, so it's hard to.
You can do it on astro.com.
Okay.
Okay, here's your return chart. This is the one. Yours is October 3rd at
Fourth.
3:57 in the morning.
Oh,
You
nope.
don't follow the calendar.
Oh, okay.
You follow the sun and the fixed
The sun.
star behind it.
Ooh, that's funny.
This is exactly where your sun comes back, exactly where it was. And the dates change. Okay, what do we see? Jumps off the chart instantly. Neptune's on the ascendant in Virgo. Okay? And that's where you had it at birth star, right?
Neptune is in Libra.
I'm sorry. Your Venus was in Virgo in your birth chart, correct?
Correct.
And you got it back here again on the angle. This is the most important planet in the chart. Your sun, it's a solar return. Your sun is in Libra in the second house. Okay, you said you're having some difficult questions with your money being allotted to you at work, money issues with the sun in the second, but moreover, with the second house being involved, it's about self-worth.
Absolutely. The money stings, but it's,
Right.
you know.
Self-worth is the topic. Self-worth. Now, why would you put 29, almost 30? Why would you put Leo rising? I've learned something recently. These return charts are incredibly accurate. Incredibly accurate. They're not used enough. Why would you accentuate your ruling planet, Venus? Why would you accentuate Venus in Virgo on the ascendant? Other than the fact that in all your relationships, it is Venus, right? I got my chart upside down. That's why I got to figure out where the buttons are. Venus and Virgo, why would you Venus and Virgo your whole next year? Because
I stepping out of.
What?
I feel like I'm.
What does Venus want to do in Virgo?
I would say take care of things.
Take care of what things?
Like Virgo's always like fixing things. And
what this means that for whatever period of time, health. Waldo's here, but he doesn't. Okay, his camera's underwater. Yeah, health would be a very big thing. Thank you, Waldo. Your relationships, you've been putting up with too much. You do not have your relationships the way you want them. And your Venus in Virgo is always up there to midheaven, and it's always up there trying to please the 10th house. It's always trying to please that Mars and Leo. And the Venus in Virgo is keep being shoved aside, and all of a sudden it's shoving itself up front. I don't like when you say that to me. I'm going to tell you that I don't like it. Venus in Virgo.
I don't think I've ever said that sentence in my life.
Of course you haven't said it, and your brain just broken half. Your brain just broken half hearing it. But that's what Venus in Virgo is. Don't say that to me. Say this. Don't call me this. Call me that. It's very exacting. It's a pain in the ass, Venus in Virgo. But it's still valid, and it wants what it wants. And there are too many social things going on around you that you want to correct, you want to fix. True or false?
It makes perfect sense.
True or false?
True.
How?
Like
100%. This is a big deal. This is your whole next year. The main planet in the chart. He must have gotten up to here with you. What are the issues that have gotten up to here? Over compromising?
No, here's what I would say. I would say that I get tired of being everybody's last priority. How about that?
That sounds like a Neptune. Peggy's over there going, yeah.
you know, I got tired of being
What is the
everybody's
number one problem with Libra women?
well,
Without a doubt.
pleasing people. You know,
Yeah,
I don't.
that's right. Bending over too far.
Yeah.
Because they're so good at it. They're so good at compromise. They're really wonderful. And they really want everything nice, but sometimes things aren't nice. Sometimes I keep squashing your foot into the ground. You're going to go, ow.
Yeah,
Okay, that's really a big deal. What that means is you got to really zoom out now. This is a first house Venus. What this means is you want to say who you are and have it be accepted. With Venus in Virgo, this has got many sides to this. Venus in Virgo, you're concerned that you're not going to have yourself socially accepted if you speak your truth. It works both ways, what's coming out of your mouth and what's coming into you. But Venus in Virgo is very much about, doggone, I want to just be myself. And I don't like it when you treat me like this. I'll still talk to you, but I don't like it. Now, what's that say to you?
Well, I just think it's I'm getting pretty old not to have this organized. You know, I mean, you know, I just turned 69. Okay, as you know, we're in the same, you know, and there's a part of me that thinks to my. I mean, the thing about COVID that's been good is that I'm really good at being by myself. I know, as social as I am, that sounds crazy.
That's the Uranus in you.
That's right. That's that Uranus. And the Uranus has been it's been a really productive time for me.
Yeah, most Libras would not be as happy as you are here.
I'm like, you know, I would never want to live with anybody else again. I mean, that's so clear to me. I would never want to do that again.
Okay, now let's go back to your chart because we need to. You got 3 planets in the 5th house. These are the big ones. And you have a lot of stuff in the 9th. And that's indicative here. You're a professor, 9th house, but it's squaring your 5th house. So you got a huge battle going on existentially all next year to improve your self-worth, right? Because of this battle that's waging between your teaching abilities and your ability to express yourself. That's what the 5th house is. The 5th house is, I'm going to say what I am, express myself. Now that's exactly what the chart says. You tell me how that translates.
I need to be doing more writing.
So you're telling me if you wrote more, that things would be a little more to your acceptance?
Well, I think that's where the expression. I think that's where the expression most needs to come from, because that feels like that's the other thing that's always at the back of the priority pile. You know, I've got a book finished book sitting in my computer that I need to send. I've got articles almost ready to go. We need to send, you know.
Okay, the 5th house is really wanting to win this battle. You cannot give in to the 9th house, because when you give in to the 9th house, you give in to somebody's rules, dogma, how you should be. The 5th house, if you've ever noticed, Leo people want to express themselves. Leo people are obsessed with creativity. They have to do it. So what do you see in your chart next year? You see this need to override your philosophies and express yourself. And the Venus in Virgo is, no, don't call me Lily. Call me Mary, whatever it is. Don't treat me this way, treat me that way. I want you to know that it's affecting me when you do that. Don't just smile. Venus in Virgo is a very tough place for people. Like when they go on a dating scene, because you tell them to keep their critical list at home before they get in the car, and they don't do it. They take their list with them, and a lot of them end up lonely.
The other side of it is that I think that's probably where the fact it's always been really hard for me to show people myself.
Well, I would say that's Sun Saturn too.
You think that's Sun Saturn? Because
Of course
whatever
it
it is, that's a big part of it too.
And it's
Because
Moon in Scorpio.
I'm like,
Moon in Scorpio.
okay, I'm happy with that little. You know.
Yeah, that all those parts mixed together there. I think all in all you're doing all right. I don't see huge problems, mainly because you don't have any planets at the 24th degree cardinal. The people with planets there are just getting blasted.
I'm not unhappy. I'm dissatisfied. How about that? That would be the way I would put it. I feel
Well,
like I'm changing, and I wasn't sure what. And now that seems
Well,
really
one of the things I think it's happening to all of us, and take a look at last night's debate. I'm speaking. I was speaking. I was speaking. Did you see what I said, Mr. Mayo? With a fly on your head? I was speaking. You're seeing Eris stick out now. What sign's Camilla? Libra.
Yeah.
The Eris is kicking butt with this world. She's kicking butt so much that you're going to see astrologers wait 3 more years till they start putting it on their chart. They're way behind because she's really doing it, and she's out there. She wants the women rising again. She wants equality. She's done with injustice, and you're seeing a lot of people abuse it, etc. So I think a lot of what's going on in your chart also is you're picking up on the collective change with Eris. Eris is fed up. She's just fed up. And the real healthy way to use Eris is, yes, to pay attention to that, but also to look at where you screwed up in the past. Where were you unfair to yourself? Where did you keep yourself down instead of blaming, etc., etc.? Boy, I swear to God, I'm going to end things now. I don't know who in the hell dreamt up these planets for 2020, and 2021, and 2022, and 2023, and 2024. All during the Pluto return, the Pluto-Saturn's back and forth. I mean, I really don't know who's going to end up doing what. But what is the one thing for sure? We're going to all need each other to help. You know, we're going to all need each other to help. I'm going to bring it to a wrap. Thank you, Linda. You've been a good candidate there.
Thank you.
I'll let you know about the show coming up in Australia, which is a couple of weeks. Next week, tune in. We're going to have Stephen Poplin on, the astrologer, talking about all the planets between October 15th and January 21st. Waldo, I hope you can get out of your basement with your camera. We're thinking about you. We hope you can dry off. And we love you down there in Cancun and in Yucatan, whatever. Where we're not. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for listening. Sarah, now she's raising her hand. Okay, Sarah, unmute yourself. Oh, yeah, love you too. Sarah, what did you want to say? You have to unmute yourself, Sarah. Okay, whatever. See you next week, everybody. Groovy love. Bye-bye. Thank you.